Hello everyone, my name is Nicoya, and these are my brakes. They are off my trail bike here, my Santa Cruz 5010, and they are the SRAM Guide RS. And so I've actually rebuilt this one already. Normally they should work roughly like this. This one, on the other hand, well, it half works, I guess. So we're going to fix that. So we're going to need a few specialized tools for this job. We're going to need a couple Torx bits. We're going to need a T10, T25 to get the lever off the bar. And we're also going to need a T9, which is a bit of an oddball size. It's not a T10, it looks exactly like a T10, but it's like 0.1 millimeters smaller or something. I don't know. We need that to actually disassemble the lever itself from the master cylinder body. But the most important tool that we need is these. This is the Motion Pro MP080279. There, you write that down. These are snap ring pliers. They are the master cylinder snap ring pliers. Master cylinder snap ring pliers. They are different from regular snap ring pliers in that the actual pincers, whatever, are very, very long. And we're actually going to need to get down in here like about there before we can get to the snap ring. And so a regular set of snap ring pliers is not going to reach. So let's get started with the disassembly. Oh wow, piston actually returned. That's cool. And to start with that, we need to remove a little rubber plug here. So pull that out, set it aside, take our T9, and we just want to loosen this set screw. Once it's loose, and once it starts to come out, let's give it a little wiggle, and there we have our first pivot. Set that aside. There's a spring in here, don't lose it. So see the spring right there, that goes on the outside of the lever body. If this center part falls out, then the spring falls out as well, so keep an eye out for that. There are also two bushings here. These bushings I find generally stay in place. And with the Guide RS, there's also two bushings down here. It might also be an RSC and Ultimate as well. These ones I find they tend to fall out, so you want to be more careful about those ones. Anyways, if you have Guide R, at this point you are ready to attack the snap rings, but for the RS and above, because we have this second pivot here, we need to loosen up a second set screw. It just needs to be loose. And then push out this pivot here. There's a second pivot. Use whatever you need to use to lift out the little, I don't know, lifter, whatever you call it. It's got a little bearing here that the lever rides on and pushes it up and down on this pivot, and that's what activates your piston. So it sort of works like that. I'm going to take out these bushings on the bottom here just so I don't lose them, because I'm going to have to clean this out later and blast it with air and stuff. So see, there's one of the bushings. And there's the other one. And yeah, if these bushings go missing, you're kind of dead in the water, so take care of them. Alright, now we are ready to go in here with our snap ring pliers, and I'm going to try to show you in here what it looks like, but I don't know if we're going to get any light in there. Oh, actually that's pretty good. So you can see we have a little snap ring there. There is a washer behind it, and then in the middle, that's the end of the piston, and that's what we're replacing. So I'm going to be lucky if I can see what I'm doing in here, so I'm going to grab a flashlight. So that way I can see what I'm doing and actually get in here with the snap ring pliers. Although, anytime you're dealing with snap rings, oh my god, wear safety glasses. So this is going to be impossible to film basically, but I'm going to get the snap ring aligned so that the two pins are basically against one side, so I can go in this way with the pliers. Try and go in like this way, what you'll find is that you don't actually have enough clearance between the two sides, and so that won't work. So now, this is going to make for a terrible video, but that's all I can do. We are going to, there we go. Nope. Kind of want to get one of the pins in and then feel around for the second one. There we go. There we go. All right. So, before this goes flying, I'm going to grab it, and there is our snap ring. So, now we can pull the rest of this stuff out. Tell you what, I'm just going to see if I can push the piston up from the bottom side. I'm going to put this little diaper on here so it doesn't leak brake fluid all over the place. Alright, let's come up a little bit. And it is emerging. Hello. Thank you. Wonderful. Alright, got the washer off there. And, you know, normally this would slide up freely, but since it is, you know, swollen from the, I think they say that high temperature does it, it's not moving freely. We can kind of cheat and use the snap ring pliers to like grab onto it a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't work. Or we can keep pushing from the bottom. You can also blast compressed air into here and like get it embedded in your ceiling or something. And unfortunately, the tip of this is kind of rounded, and so you want to make sure you're not going off the side or something and scuffing up the cylinder. There, finally. So here we got the piston out. You can see that it has two seals on it. This one is sort of the primary seal that pushes the brake fluid down into the brake line and into the caliper. So that will pass the timing port when you pull on the lever. This second one just makes sure that when the timing port is open on the back side, you don't have a bunch of brake fluid spilling out of the master cylinder, basically. Probably can't see that on camera, but the end of this one is all sort of scuffed up and everything, so that would be what was jamming up against the inside of the cylinder. But you can kind of see it's like black and grimy and everything. So this is toast. We're going to put in a new one. But we also need to get the spring out. There we go, the spring. This is not necessarily particularly clean right now, so I'm going to, actually I'm going to take the diaphragm out of here because the new parts kits, they always seem to come with a new diaphragm, so while you got things open, you might as well put the new one in. So that's pretty simple. It's just the T10 Torx. You lift it out. Let's do that. Now I've drained this system, but there's still going to be some fluid in here because you never get it all out. So here we can see our diaphragm on the inside of our master cylinder cap, and we will use a pick to go around the edges here and essentially dig this out because it seats down in here and gets kind of tight. And we don't have to reuse this one because we have a new one, so if you accidentally poke a hole through it, it's not a big deal. There we go, we got it loosened up. Peel that out, and you can see on the back side here there's all kinds of grime in here. That's because there's a little vent hole here that's open to the atmosphere, which allows the air pressure in the back here to equalize. There. So I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to clean up the body, and we'll see you back when it's clean. Alright, we are all cleaned up and ready to go. You can see the inside of the lid here, and it's got all the, well, most of the grunge washed out of it, so that's good. The new kit also comes with new bleed screws, so I'm actually going to replace both of these because these tend to get a little rusty, and You don't want rust on here. And there's also a little O-ring around the base of the threads, which can get old. Old and crusty and ride out. Should have secured that better. There's number 2. So we'll bust out our new parts, and we'll start with, I guess, the bleed screws. Yeah, well, that's interesting. My kit is defective and was missing one of the bleed screws. So I guess I will just pick whichever one of the old ones looks nicest and reuse it. Which is fine. I think this one looks nicer. Luckily the bleed screws weren't the problem in the first place. So they won't be a problem now. Take the new diaphragm and take some DOT grease, which I have a tiny little vial of, and get a little bit around the edge here. Basically, you just always want to put grease on a gasket when you're putting it in. Helps keep from getting pinched and all kinds of bad things happening. Now, greased up, put this back into the master cylinder cap. And we want to make sure that that is seating down there properly. So you want to look at the edges, make sure they're not lifted up or anything. And we are looking pretty good. So I can pop that back onto there. Grab our screws, which we're reusing. And before we tighten that down, we just want to take a little look around the edges, make sure that there's no places where it's like obviously squishing out or squishing in or anything like that. And then we can go and just bottom out those screws. Don't have to go crazy on them. Perfect. So that is the reservoir taken care of. Now we get to put the new piston in. So we got the new piston and spring. And the spring can just drop down in there and do its thing. The piston will need some DOT grease. And in a pinch, yeah, you can just like put some brake fluid on here, but you really want the grease. I mean, the whole point here is trying to reduce friction, right? So, just enough to make it look wet. This little dish here is a lifetime supply. So, that goes round and down into there. And, oh yeah, it's up and down, sliding, no problem. Now we get to the fun part. So, take our washer. Our washer goes onto the piston. If I can possibly get it there. Like that. And it is safety glasses time again. So, take our snap ring, fit it onto the pliers, and give it a squeeze. And you kind of want that right on the tip of the pliers, if at all possible. So I'm going to give it a light squeeze. I want to push it down in there and not knock the washer off, which I just did. And now, off the side a little bit. Okay. Now basically we try to get that down in there, which is not easy. Let's see, how am I doing? Nope, not yet. Sort of partly in there right now, but if I can get fully in there, it don't work. Okay, that sounded good. That's a start. Okay, a little bit in there. But we're not quite all the way open yet. That means we have to keep going. Okay, yeah, let's see where we're going here. This down further. Aha! Okay. As we can see, we have the snap ring in there. Take my glasses off so I can see what you're looking at. The snap ring is in there very evenly. There's not like a side where it's sticking up or sticking out or anything like that. And if we depress the piston, see, it's moving freely, coming up and down. That's very good. So now we continue along with rebuilding. Put this on here and just sort of cozy it in onto there. Perfect. Same thing on the other side. Hook it on the hook and yeah, sort of wiggle it into there. There we go. I'm just using a little pick here. Now we take the smaller pivot, which is in here. Didn't go missing, thank goodness. And for this, we're just going to use regular old slick oleum. Just going to butter this up just lightly. Remember, this is what's actually moving here when you pull the lever. I'm going to take the swing linkage, the cam follower, the whatever the heck this thing is, and I'm going to actually get it down into the piston. And there we go. Push that through. And with the T9 Torx, go in the back here and just lug that up. Remember, that's just holding that pin in place. That's all it's doing. Take our main pivot, and again, if you have the R instead of the RS, this will be the only pivot you have. Butter that up. Trying to drop it on the floor because it's now super slippery. Now this one's a little bit tricky. You want, again, like I said at the beginning, you want this spring on the outside of the lever body. So you kind of start it there, shuffle it forward, and then whenever we get that lined up, and remember there's sort of two things working here because the lever itself is a separate piece from the actual, I don't know, lever cam thing follower, because you can adjust it and that changes the relationship between the lever and the actual actuator or whatever it is. So you might need to shift that back and forth a little bit when you're trying to wiggle this in place. This one went in pretty easily, thankfully, so didn't have to worry too much about that. Again, T9, just snug that down so it doesn't fall out. That's all you need. We will find that tiny little plug that keeps the dirt and grime out of this one. And there we go. So now we are ready to reinstall this on the bike. So as you can see, that is what brakes are supposed to do. So we'll give that a bleed. We'll reinstall it. I'll show it with the actual logo up, the actual logo upright. So reinstall that, give it a bleed. Make sure you use a good flare nut wrench for putting your hose back on. That'll keep you from accidentally rounding off the corners on the flare nut bolt, whatever you call it. You get the picture. Keeps it from slipping off. You can use like a regular open-end wrench, but whatever. So, hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and I will see you on the next one. Assuming I don't, have brake failure and die.